YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Really excited about today's video idea here. So every single year, every single off season, the media, maybe more than maybe everybody, has a group of teams that they say, all right, these are the shittiest teams for this upcoming season. These teams are not going to be good. They're guaranteed to be bad. And there always ends up being one, two, sometimes more of those teams that end up being better than expected, sneaky good sometimes. And people expected the Bengals to be bad last year. They went to the Super Bowl. So this year is 8 teams that everyone's just like, all right, including myself sometimes, these are the bad teams. So I'm going to take those 8 teams and talk about why they could be sneaky good, why they may be better than everyone expected. Because, again, there's bound to be 1 or 2 of these teams, maybe 3, that end up being better than expected. It's usually because there's something unique about that team that people weren't really expecting, or maybe teams have struggled to deal with on the football field. So we're going to break that all down. We'll also talk about why they, could be bad like we're expecting. So excited about this one, randomly thought of this. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. You kind of can play along with your thoughts on these teams. Again, 8 teams we'll talk about. Follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, news, rumors, and more. Bonus content for super followers, especially during the season. Fantasy Q&A, things like that for the super followers. Check it out. And then subscribe to notifications on full NFL coverage. There's a game tonight. There's a football game tonight. A lot of backups, but it's still football. Can't wait to watch it. We'll be talking during it on Twitter. So check us out there. Again, link down below. Here's our Twitters. A lot of updates, a lot of thoughts, news, rumors, everything. We got you covered. If you're not following us there, you're missing out. 8 teams we're talking about. You saw the 8 teams in the thumbnail. No specific order. We'll start with the Chicago Bears here. Why can the Bears be sneaky good? Why can they be one of those teams that everyone was wrong about, the media was wrong about, all of us maybe were wrong about? I think there's a few reasons why. I think they could have a tough running game on offense, obviously, with and that kind of goes into that second part where Justin Fields kind of could be a problem. He could be a problem in general. Talk about like if he progresses, if the quarterback progresses, and if Justin Fields kind of plays close to or to where he was at Ohio State or what we thought he can be, the team is a lot better. But the run game kind of all goes together. I think Justin Fields specifically could be very dangerous on the ground. You see those bootlegs, which involve throwing the ball as well, which they're implementing in their offense. And I've seen throughout their training camp, I've seen a little bit of some read option action, and that's always difficult to stop, especially for those old school NFL defenses led by old school coaches, the RPO or the read option specifically. And Fields with his speed, athleticism, but size too. He's not an easy dude to bring down. That could be a problem for defenses. It could be that pain in the ass, like, we got to deal with this week, and Fields going to run all over us, but we got to worry about the running backs too, because they may take the ball, and they got some good ones in Montgomery, and I'm starting to think Khalil Herbert could be used a bit more. It could be a little bit more of a split. Herbert could fit that. I think he does. He fits that new offense pretty well, this scheme. So, but mainly Fields there. Could he progress as a whole, like in general, everything? But on the ground, that could be a problem, because he could be a legit runner. He's got to hang on to the ball a little bit better, which he could do. I expect him to do. So that could be that, that offense that teams are like, yeah, on paper they're not that great, but we don't really want to deal with this. How do we game plan for this? Do we have the right players to, I think maybe the younger defenses that are fresh from those college defenses, the younger, more athletic defenses, players, on those defenses could be maybe match up better against the Bears than maybe kind of the veteran defense. Just a thought. I think they have a pretty strong secondary as well, actually. Heard good things about it. It looks pretty good on paper, maybe underrated. Could Eddie Jackson kind of get back to where he was, or just close? Just asking that. Close. I love the Jaquan Brisker pick as a kind of a do-it-all type of strong safety, box safety, line him up a weak side linebacker at times. Could send him on a blitz. He'll make plays in the backfield. And the corners look pretty solid as well. With Jalen Johnson, I like to pick Kyler Gordon, and they have Thomas Graham who looked solid last year as well. So Tavon Young in the slot, perhaps. So that secondary might be better than expected. And then Eberflus a very good defensive coach. He should coach them up to stop the run a little bit better. And I kind of remember last year the Bears, they weren't a good team last year, but they lost a lot of close games, and a lot of the blame was Nagy. Rightfully so. Play calling, decision making, but I didn't think he had that team disciplined. There was very much a lack of discipline, which cost that team, I thought, based on what I watched, cost them some games. And I mean, 1, 2, 3 games means a lot, you know. And Eberflus, I thought he always had that defense with Indianapolis, well disciplined, technically sound. So I think he's going to bring that. That was a big reason they hired him. He's going to bring that to Chicago. So for all those reasons, I think the main part, I try to find unique, you know, because every time these teams that are bad are supposed to be bad end up being good. It's something unique, something sneaky about them. I think, you know, that running game, you know, if they kind of get going with the, you know, Fields running the ball, you know, a lot of bootlegs with Tim, maybe some read options. How will they be in terms of the pass game? I guess that's the question. But why? You know, maybe they'll prove the media right or everyone right, and they'll be bad. Yeah, they're pretty young. QB doesn't have a lot of, you know, a big supporting cast there, especially when it comes to receiver and offensive line. So that's a tough part as well. Do they have the top tier talent? They have Robert Quinn, you know, Roquan Smith if he plays, but mainly units. Do they have like those units, I should say, that are kind of takeover units? You know, is it a team that their offense can carry in a victory or their defense on any given Sunday can carry in the victory? I don't know if they have that right now. And then D-line, you know, when they did have that, because thought it was because their D-line was pretty damn good. They don't really have that anymore. So I think that's why people we're all kind of thinking they're not going to be that great this year. But again, they could be sneaky for those reasons. So Chicago Bears, we'll see what they got for us. Seahawks are next. And another team that could have a strong run game. I mean, a great duo with Rashad Penny and Kenny Walker there. I mean, that 1-2 punch is pretty deadly, and you know that's a group of guys that can have 100-plus rushing yards in a game. You know, they could win on the ground with those guys. They have legit. That's the thing. People view the Seahawks as bad, and they might be bad, but you know, they mainly because they lost Russell Wilson, but they have the playmakers still. Like I think some of us kind of forget that a little bit at times. Like they still have DK Metcalf, they still have Tyler Lockett, they have those running backs. You know, maybe the offensive line will be a bit better. I mean, they have playmakers on defense. Jamal Adams, even though people like to rip Jamal Adams, you know, he's still a big-time player, a big-time playmaker. Quandre Diggs, a playmaker in the back end. Jordan Brooks is really coming along pretty good. So they still, you know, I'm not going to sit here and mention everyone, but they still have those legit playmakers that can take over games despite not having the quarterback. They're a pretty underrated pass rush that I think could be unique. I think it could be very unique when it comes to, well, the young duo of Darrell Taylor and Uchenna Nwosu. I think it's a solid pass rush. You know, you're not going to rank it high in terms of the pass rush groups amongst the league, but they'll get after the quarterback. They're continuing to get better. Nwosu's a guy that moves around a bit, so that kind of presents itself like as maybe somewhat of a unique pass rush. And why I'm looking for kind of unique things, unique pass rush specifically. How do offenses deal with that? You know, the same thing. If I find something unique on offense, how do defenses deal with that? How is it as a game plan? And yeah, Nwosu moves around a bit, which I like that. And then you factor in Jamal Adams, who's an incredible blitzer. You can see him come off the edge or, you know, on the inside, you know. So I think you combine those types of players, you have kind of a unique pass rush that it is, you know, it doesn't look like the best on paper, but it's one of those where it could be annoying for offenses to deal with, game plan for. So I like that about them. And then could they end up with Jimmy Garoppolo? You know, and then they get better. You know, if they have Jimmy Garoppolo, they might be a playoff team here. It's possible. People would probably say no, but and those people are kind of forgetting that they have the playmakers there. So we'll see what happens with Jimmy. You know, I'm not saying he's going to be on there or not, but still currently on the 49ers. So that's why they could be sneaky good, better than expected. You know, why maybe they'll prove everyone right is, you know, at the moment they're still weak at the quarterback position, you know, most important position in football. And they could, you know, even though that run game looks pretty damn good, could be strong. If they don't have that solid passing game from the quarterback, they can become one-dimensional. Offensive line still a little bit of a question, you know, like, you know, adding Cross, for an example, could be a little bit of a question. No, it's still probably the bottom portion of the NFL. Extremely young defense that could struggle a bit just because it's so young and they're kind of in that somewhere in that rebuild process with that defense. And cornerback, a little bit of a question. Hearing good things about Kobe Bryant, I did like that pick. And they have Sidney Jones, but they could be towards the bottom part of the NFL with the cornerback play there. But they got strong safeties. They're solid at safety, I should say. So, yeah, so we'll see how it's going to be weird without Russell Wilson. We'll see if, you know, maybe they're just, because we're so used to Seahawks being kind of in contention for the playoffs or better every year. It'd be pretty, you know, interesting if they're kind of still in that conversation at the end of the day. Next, talk about the Texans. Davis Mills and this offensive line might be a lot better than everyone thinks. It's kind of a weird situation because Davis Mills played surprisingly well last year, and he made some throws, especially like tough throws and the hardest throws in football to the sideline or on the move. He consistently made those, so you kind of go back and think, and I think we're all, maybe including myself, maybe a little stubborn when it comes to Davis Mills. Like, it's kind of fully hard to invest right now, but just think of the scenario where he continues where he left off and grows on that. He's pretty damn solid, so he can be a lot better than expected. I think we're used to the Texans' offensive line just being completely terrible. But Laramie Tunsil's back. It feels like they found a home for Titus Howard there at the right tackle position, perhaps, and he seemed like he was playing well down there with a 3.5, 4 games that he played there. So the tackle position, if healthy, could be set, actually, believe it or not. They had Kenyon Green on the inside, which they needed a guy like that. I think he's a plug-and-play, instant, solid guard, especially in terms of pass protection. So that offensive line also might be better than what we're used to. I think the thing with the Texans is I think we're all kind of stubborn with them a little bit and kind of insisting it's the same old Texans, where things could be actually getting better. And even if, some people may say they're heading in the right track for the future, maybe it happens a little sooner rather than later here. So it's kind of a unique team in that way. Run game can be solid. They got multiple running backs in there, that can contribute and produce for them. I like their cornerback duo here. They were very weak at that position last year. I like Stingley and Nelson. I think that's a pretty good cornerback duo, and that's pretty damn important for Lovie Smith's Tampa 2 defense. You need some corners that can press, and that can because cover 2 technically. Corners are supposed to have the flats, but you want the corners that can do more than that. Kind of get outside their comfort zone, stick with the receiver. Rather than sitting in your zone. That's what you're looking for in that defense. It's very important to get those corners that can do that. And you got Stingley and Nelson, who are very good at man coverage, and usually those types of corners are good at playing cover 2 the right way, and they can implement some man coverage as well. And it also kind of confuses quarterbacks and offenses. What are they in man? Are they in cover 2? So that's actually big for that defense. And this is the unique part, the main unique part, actually. Pass rush was really bad last year, specifically edge rush. They had nobody. I think they're pretty deep at the position right now when it comes to edge, but also when it comes to, and that's kind of the key part, but pass rush in general. But you look at edge, Grenard had actually had a really good year last year. He can continue to grow. But they had a couple of the Bills guys, obviously, and Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, Okoronkwo they add as well. So they're not super strong at the edge position, but they're actually kind of deep. They got some guys that can play there, and I think Grenard and Hughes, I think it seems like a solid starting group there. But you look at pass rush in general, that's where it comes in unique. I mean, you have depth off the edge, you have some guys, but you bring in a guy like Christian Harris from Alabama, who's an off-ball linebacker that can line up off the edge, but an off-ball linebacker that is extremely good at blitzing as well. I mean, that adds to the pass rush. And then you had Jalen Petrie from Baylor, who's kind of a do-it-all type strong safety that lines up, almost on the line of scrimmage on the box. He's incredibly good at blitzing. So that kind of creates this unique pass rush, and maybe a little deeper than given credit for, that offensive lines, quarterbacks, in the meeting, the film room, they don't want to deal with. They don't want to prepare for. So that's where they actually could kind of be unique. And they have those corners too. So maybe that defense could be a little better expected because they have that unique factor, which I'm looking for in an exercise like this. Very young. They're still kind of in that rebuild situation. And chemistry, I put chemistry kind of question mark for the Texans, and every team we talked about in this video pretty much has the very young or extremely young label. But why I kind of put chemistry as somewhat of an issue with the Texans is because they signed a bunch of these guys as one-year deals, and I don't really love that. It feels like these guys, they're kind of on a trial run here. They know they may be on a new team next year. They're not really used to playing with each other as on top of all that because they're young, because they're new. So that part is a little tricky. Only one consistent target, I'd say, and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is great, but after that, Mechie probably out for the year, and Nico Collins is all right. Wish they had some more consistent, get open, consistent big play guys for Davis Mills, because Davis Mills could be a lot better if you got those guys. Every unit is below average on paper. You look at the units, every single unit on this team, like every single one seems below average, which that is the main reason why people don't believe in the Texans probably, and it's understandable. and they are lacking above average talent on D. On offense, I didn't want to say that because they have Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Cooks. I mean, these are some above average guys here. But on defense, it's like, yeah, they got some guys that can play. They got some unique guys on that defense, but do they have an above average player? They could end up having one or two or three or four. It doesn't really look like that right now. So I think people are doubting them because what we look at on paper. But I like there's something unique in there. That's what I'm looking for in this video, because these teams that always end up being sneaky good, it's usually something, because there's something there that's kind of unique or special or surprising about them that people didn't really expect, and I'm trying to find those for each of those teams. So if it happens, we come back like, okay, maybe we're a little bit prepared for this. The Falcons are next. I think it's a unique offense with kind of a mixture of things here. I mean, you look at Mariota, and think about Mariota at quarterback. Main thing you think of is he's athletic. He can escape pressure, but he can run as well. And you're going to see bootlegs. You're going to see RPO, read option. Maybe some just options in general. And that's like, there's teams that can stop it, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to deal with, dealing with that. But then you kind of factor into the targets he has, looking at Kyle Pitts and Drake London. These are big body contested catch targets. I mean, who has that duo in football right now? Really nobody. So you're kind of combining that, like those two things together. It's very weird, but it could be deadly at the same time. Like, all right, we got to worry about this. And in factor in the running backs too. Cordero Patterson, what the hell is he's a unique player? What is he doing? Is he a receiver, running back? Is he going to come around for the end around? Is he going to get wild? He's going to be a wildcat. Are they going to run an option with them? You got to worry about that. Got to worry about the quick run game, misdirection. And then you're so focused on that in the box, but then you got these contested catch studs that they can just throw the ball up to. Like, hey, he doesn't have to be at that on target, can just throw the ball up to while we're expecting run or some kind of unique run. So those things together seems pretty damn cool. It's weird, unique, and cool. So I'm excited to watch it. And that actually really could throw some teams off, kind of going further into those the giant targets of Pitts and London. It's like, which teams have the DBs to man up on these guys? You're going to probably have to run some zone against them, and you have to rely on executing that. So a lot of teams have like a guy that can line up on a Pitts. We saw last year, Pitts kind of went off, but in the red zone, somebody put like their best option to handle that in the red zone. But now you got London too. So you have two of those guys. So interesting. It feels like a unique team for that reason. But yeah, the game plan could be tough. They have playmakers on this team. They're not lacking playmakers across the board. I mean, look at the targets that we talked about. I mean, consider Patterson a playmaker. I mean, if you want to consider an offensive lineman a playmaker, Matthews is a pretty good offensive lineman. Defense, you got Grady Jarrett. You got A.J. Terrell, who's a hell of a corner as well. I mean, Deion Jones hasn't been playing as good as he can play, had some injuries, and there's some talk about a trade. But if that guy's on the field healthy, it's still Deion Jones. He can still be a playmaker. So they're not one of those teams that's really lacking the playmakers. They do have some holes here and there. Strong at corner, which I like. I think, I really like Dean Pease as defensive coordinator, and you hear him talk about, all right, this is going to be more of that full defense this year. So even though it's not the greatest looking one on paper, I kind of trust Dean Pease and where he can bring this defense. And then why they can be bad. Like I see some people having the Falcons as the first pick. I don't know if they'll be that bad, but why maybe they'll be that bad. Passing game could be inconsistent, which result in them being one-dimensional, just that unique running game. O-line's still a little bit of a question. Matt Ryan got pressured a ton last year. And they are lacking consistent separators. Pitts, London, two very good targets. But yeah, do they separate a lot? Do they have, Cordero Patterson maybe? He had a separation issue because he's not the greatest route runner, even though he's quick. So they don't really have that separator. It's going to be a lot of throw the ball up for grabs there. So that's tough as well. Young pass rush could struggle. They're strong at corner, but I think they're a little weak at safety. So that's weird. It's like I could see one week the secondary having a very good week, the passing defense. Maybe because of how strong their corners are, but then there's one week where it's like, the corners feel like they got to carry too much, you got to do too much there. So that's the tough part of the Falcons there. Next team, talk about the Jets. Defense to me has top 10 potential. That would be a big jump from last year, but they really do. I mean, they got a great coaching staff. They got a great defensive minded head coach in Robert Saleh. And they got talent across the board. They got pass rush, they got rotation, they got the interior defensive line. They got, they got a lot better at the cornerback position as well. a lot better. 2 new starters in there. So that defense, I don't think it's completely out there for them to be a top 10 defense. The defense is pretty close to complete as well. Like, there's really no giant hole. Then they could be better at safety, but there really isn't a giant hole. I think the pass rush is strong when it comes to the outside, and Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson, John Franklin Myers moves around a bit outside and in. Love that. Quinnen Williams gets that interior pressure. Rankins gets interior pressure. They got bodies that can get pressure, so that's a good starting point there. We talk about they're very well coached. Improved offensive line. That offensive line could be one of those. I mean, they weren't worse last year, but in the area of worst to first, in that area, they're not going to go from 32 to 1 because it's not. They weren't 32, and they're not going to be 1 this year. But kind of, I think you get what I mean. Kind of in that area. Could Wilson progress, and that instantly makes them better? Could that be who we expected, that top tier prospect, come out? That could instantly make them better. What I like, even if Wilson struggles here and there a bit, you still have to respect. The defenses still have to worry somewhat about the deep ball, especially with the playmakers they have, because they have several playmakers, especially at the receiver position now. They have speed too. They have to respect that deep ball. But that run game, I'm not really, the pass game, a little bit of a question still, right? You wonder, you wait and see what's going to happen. But that run game, I don't think it's much of a question. You improve the offensive line, especially for the run game. You have a very good 1-2 punch in Breece and Michael Carter. This team will run the ball well. They will have a run game. And again, that deep ball still presents itself, without even throwing a deep ball. So having those two together, defenses respecting that, is very good for your offense. It really stretches the defense out. You can't really load the box because of that, unless Wilson really, really struggles or something, really struggles. So that's a great sign for the Jets as well. They are very young. Wilson could continue to struggle with accuracy, mainly on, intermediate throws, layup throws that he should hit, and that those are huge because those are drive enders right there, extenders if you just hit them, So he's got to be more consistent, got to be more accurate. And the O-line, it seems like it's a lot better. Seems like an actual unit, but they could have growing pains still. Fant was very good for them last year, but it's kind of been one really good year we've seen from him. And Becton playing right, what are we going to see from him? I'm not really worried about the interior, so there could be some growing pains. And safety, a little bit of a question. I still like that defense a lot, though. So the Jets, probably one of the teams on this list one of the better ones, and one of more teams I'm feeling good about their chances of being the sneaky ones there. So. And you see a lot of positives from there in this part here. Giants are next. Yeah, they get Brian Daboll, obviously the head coach, run that offense. His system can be, we've seen it, can be tough to stop, tough to game plan for. It's one of those. It's a system that kind of the same thing as the Jets. It's you kind of stretch the field out a little bit with that one because you want to throw the deep ball. Daniel Jones actually, hasn't been good, not even close, but the deep ball's actually been decent. It's actually been decent there. He's got the arm, and he can run. He's a sneaky good runner, and they have Barkley, so it's just one of those offenses that, could by default kind of stretch defenses out there because you got to respect the deep ball. You got to respect Jones or Barkley running from that Daboll system there. So, again, they can stretch defense. That's great. They have playmakers. I mean, you have Kenny Galladay, you have Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley. You have more receivers than that, too. You have playmakers. And then defense, there's some playmakers as well. So that's obviously great. And you look at the defense, I mean, they got some run stoppers for sure. They're going to stop the run, and I think their pass rush is finally looking they had some interior pass rush, but now the pass rush in general, especially off the edge, is finally looking a lot better. So it's a defense. You look at it on paper, it's like, looks like this defense will stop the run pretty well. Looks like they'll get after the quarterback pretty well. So that's very good. QB play could be a problem. Daniel Jones he's been bad so far. I mean, he's had some flashy plays down the field here and then running here and there, but he's been inconsistent. Turned the ball over a bit. Accuracy sometimes pops up as an issue. And out of camp, I am hearing they already have issues learning and executing the Daboll offense. It's pretty complex. They don't have Josh Allen in there, right? And they don't have the veteran Diggs or something like that, like Daboll had in Buffalo. So even though they have some good receivers, but that's tough hearing that, that a little sloppy already. Interior offense line a question. Love what they did with the tackles. Interior offense line definitely a question. Cornerback a little bit of a question. They move on from Bradbury. They have a Dory Jackson who's solid. Can he stay healthy? After that, kind of relying on a young guy to step up. Aaron Robinson perhaps, who can be solid. But that's tough because they bring in Martindale. Don Martindale is their defensive coordinator. He likes to run a lot of man coverage, and so it may limit that man coverage if you don't have the strong corners. You'd rather run zone, perhaps. They do have, it feels like they have durability issues. I mean, across the board. Look at Saquon Barkley. You look at Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard. Tony's tough to put that label on because he's only been in the league for 1 year. Defense, a guy like Adoree Jackson, perhaps, so Blake Martinez. It's kind of tough. Feliciano, they want to play center, is just constantly hurt. So that's kind of an issue for this team right now. Like, there's some good young talent on the team, but it is kind of the issue there. So Giants, main thing here is I think the main thing with them, why they could be good, is, kind of the stretching the defenses out. But also a main thing is what we don't like hearing right now is that they're picking up this offense. Is it going to be a slow process? Are they going to still be picking it up and executing it? Having problems with that early in the season, we'll see. Jags next. Trevor Lawrence could be Trevor Lawrence. People forget just because he had a bad year last year that what Trevor Lawrence is supposed to become, what he can become, and that's a very, very, very special quarterback. And to me, I think there's a lot of people that will be surprised if he's really good this year. I wouldn't be that surprised. He's Trevor Lawrence. Like I'm relying on it, but I'm kind of believing in the pre-draft process, the prospect evaluation, I should say, and that he could be a very good quarterback early on. And you got a Super Bowl winning coach there. He's got better playmakers. So just like that, I can see Trevor Lawrence going from, he's bad last year, going from bad to, he could play like a top 10 quarterback. That's a little out there, but I wouldn't blow my mind that much, and I think it's realistic in that range, and that just makes the team a lot better if he plays like that. And the staff improved. We talk about that. That's just big time. I think it's the same thing we kind of been talking about the Giants and the Jets. I think all around though, like everyone knows what Trevor Lawrence can be. Everyone knows he's capable of. He can make the tough NFL throws. You have to respect the passing game, especially because they added better weapons. And you definitely have to respect the run games. Lawrence could run himself, but having Etienne and James Robinson, you have to respect that run game. So the field's really stretched, and it's not just deep ball and run game. It's pretty much everything there, especially with Doug Peterson calling that offense. So love that about them. And the unique part of the team to me is actually the defense. And this defense, I like the way they're heading here. They have some young players, but I think it's mainly unique with kind of the unique pass rushers. I mean, you have Josh Allen, who's your edge rusher that will get after the quarterback, sort of proven at this point. And then you have Trayvon Walker, you draft first overall, who's going to play edge opposite of Allen, or he's going to play on the inside as well, which he can get that great interior pressure. That's key. And then you have Devin Lloyd, who's first an off-ball linebacker, but he is very good at lining up off the edge or blitzing, but he's actually pretty damn good, from what I've watched, lining up off the edge and getting after the quarterback. So there could be times where it's like Allen and Walker rushing the passer, Lloyd blitzing, Allen and Lloyd rushing the passer off the edge, and you're looking at Lloyd pre-snap like that's the linebacker. What is he doing? And meanwhile, you got Walker on the inside, who demolished interior players while at Georgia because he's too long, athletic, and strong for them, mainly the length. And getting that interior pressure. So that's going to be it's going to be a pain in the ass for offenses to deal with, like trying to figure out what's happening and what's coming there. And I think they'll stop the run better than people think too, which I love defenses that first they stop the run, and they got more pass rushers than that, guys in the interior that can get after the quarterback. But I think those guys will actually stop the run at a pretty solid level. And then to add on top of that, they have that unique pass rush. That's pretty good for the Jags. That's pretty good. It's really on Trevor Lawrence, though. It's really on Trevor Lawrence because he could be great. He could be great pretty soon, and that could instantly make them close to a great team. Maybe they'll get there, Why maybe they'll be not so hot this year. I think they're in the category of the Jets, so I think this is one of the teams that, do they really belong on this list? Like, should people be doubting them as much as they are? I think these teams have teams like the Jags, the Jets, maybe a couple more of the teams that should be the sneaky good teams. I'm expecting them to be maybe. But O-line can be inconsistent. There are far worse offensive lines, but it could be a little inconsistent there. Maybe there's no standout guy for them. I mean, now they do it, sure, if he's healthy. Lacking top-tier playmakers on offense, which those guys that can be James Robinson, sure, if he's healthy. ETN could get there. They got better. They got better playmakers, adding Kirk, Zay Jones. But do they have that top-tier takeover guy for Trevor Lawrence? A little bit of a question. Defense could have growing pains. Like I said, I like where their defense is heading. I think it's unique. I think they'll stop the run. They get unique pressure, pass rush. Secondary is looking a little deeper now. Maybe safety's a little bit of a question, perhaps. But it's a little young, and they're still trying to find their way and they're trying to make that unique defense. So there could be growing pains here and there. But Jags are a sneaky team this year. They could be a lot better than people expect. And the last team, we'll talk about the Detroit Lions, who I think people are just used to the Lions being bad, so they kind of get that label. But that young talent, there's a lot. It's kind of a negative for some teams. Not a negative, but maybe they're too young. But the Lions got that. I mean, you look at the top-tier young talent that really shouldn't have too much growing pains or that should be ready to break out. You look at that across the league. The Lions got a chunk of those guys, it feels like, because I've been loving the way that they've been drafting, what Brad Holmes has done there. So they got that young, and there's young, talented players taking on. You see these younger guys that are just instantly known as one of the better. Just last year alone, Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase, just a few examples. But a lot of these corners are even stepping up way earlier than expected, but they're it's kind of today's NFL. It's more athletic guys, so it's easy to believe that the young guys, it's realistic to believe the young guys are just that much of an impact early on. The Lions have those guys. They got guys that are ready to break out from last year. There's two really good draft classes, in my opinion. So these guys can just really break out like all over the place. I mean, just look at every position group all over the place. And if they all break out like they could, then it's a pretty damn good team. So that's just something I'm watching for the Lions. They really have no holes on offense. And people probably laugh and will say Goff. I don't know if I view that as a hole. Like, yes, he has to play better. You could get better. It's definitely possible to get better at the quarterback position, but it's not really a hole. Like Goff, I think played believe it or not, I think he played a little bit better than people give him credit for. Not that he played good, but credit for last year. And now he's settled in. He's got better talent around him. He's got a good offensive line. He's actually got receivers. The running game should be pretty good. So I don't know if they really have holes on offense. Like, sure, there's spots that they can get better, but I'm not really seeing one. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. I feel like every single position/unit should be better this year. Like, some of it stayed the same, but it also could be kind of better by default in a way. Like Goff got better second year, got better talent around him. He should be better. Offensive line kind of was going into last year was like, all right, the Lions offensive line looks pretty good on paper. It actually might be good, but there's some growing pains, kind of getting used to each other. I think it should be better kind of by default there. Running backs are pretty deep. Swift going into kind of a breakout potential year. Hopefully stays healthy. Receivers definitely got better. Looking at the defenses, all over the defense, it's just a bunch of young guys that are just set to break out, talented young players. So I think every single unit, will every single unit be better? Like, we'll have to wait and see. But I think every single unit should be better, which means the team all around is better. Improved playmakers. They got some playmakers out there, obviously, guys that could be playmakers. There's potential for that offensive line to be top tier, And I think a lot of people, even the people that doubt lines, I think there's a lot of people that see like that's possible there with that offensive line. So I think everyone might be in agreement with that. Maybe top tier, I guess how you define top tier. Will they be top 5, top 3? Maybe a bold prediction, but it's possible they can be there. So we'll see. They are still very young. I like the young talent they have. They're ready to break it. Like I said, there could be growing pains, and the coaching staff's a likable coaching staff. But if people forget last year, they made some there was games they lost, not really because the talent needed to be better, but because there was some brutal decision making. Whether it came to clock management, fourth down, third down decisions, offense, defense, there was multiple games like that actually that they lost because of bad decisions. So I think that coaching staff will definitely be better this year, but it's still, we can't just write that. We can't just forget about it. Like that was a problem last year. It's possible it's a problem again. QB play, Goff needs to be better. It could be a little inconsistent. He can be inconsistent, obviously, bad at times. But overall, is he a bad quarterback? I'd say in general, no, I wouldn't consider him a bad quarterback. They are lacking top-tier talent. They have the young guys that will be top-tier talent. And I won't say maybe. I really think they will be top-tier talent. But right now, today, they don't really have They got guys that very easily can be that way this year, but do they have the top tier? I don't know if there's a single guy like that guy is a top tier talent. I mean, it's very easy for a guy like Sewell to be that guy. Maybe Swift, maybe Hutchinson right away, but today, like proven, I guess I'll say, they don't really have that. They're heading in that direction, though. I think a defensive playmaker like must emerge. They don't have that. They got good players on defense, and again, Hutchinson could be getting after quarterback like crazy, and they got a number of guys that could get after quarterback. Perhaps it's kind of a question, but right now, today, do they have that top? Do they have that playmaker that can take over on defense? I don't think they really have that. See these teams that end up being sneaky good or better. They kind of have these top tier star players here and there. Which, again, the Lions, some of these guys that are currently on the roster, I think they will be. I think they will be there. So because I just really love the way they've been drafting these last 2 years. So, maybe the Lions would be different. It'd be a different Lions team. I definitely could see it. Kind of break out of that funk there would be something. So, I actually really enjoyed this video. I just, one of these teams, 1, 2, maybe 3's pushing it. They're bound to be a lot better than expected. The whole world's bound to be wrong on 1 or 2 of these teams. Got to be. So kind of wanted to identify those things that why they could be good, the unique ways that they could be good. So maybe we're a little more prepared for it. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Always talking on Twitter with you guys. Always interacting with you guys there. Make sure you like, subscribe, to notifications on because we got you covered fully for the NFL season. It's right here. Preseason game tonight. So really excited about our content that's to come here. But that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.